Thank you for joining this episode of TDi Insights. I'm Sarah Wilkinson, TDi Sustainability's Marketing Manager, and I'm joined today by TDi's CEO, Assheton Stewart Carter, to discuss TDi's 10-year anniversary. Assheton, 10 years of TDi, how does that feel?
Well, I think it feels we're last established at TDi, which I think is quite an accomplishment in itself. But overall, I think I feel quite proud, really. We've managed to grow and sustain and serve our clients. And some might think you might feel a bit exhausted after 10 years of building a company. I think I feel energized, in fact, and looking forward to the next 10. So to me, this is the foundations, and that gives me a lot of energy.
And what about your own personal foundations? What led you to found TDi? And can you tell us a little bit about your own personal background?
Yeah, I've had quite a varied background, really, not linear. So I actually started in the financial markets. I was a stockbroker, asset manager, before moving briefly into academia and then working for international NGOs in the United States for 12 years. And along the way, through that education and through that experience working with NGOs, I guess a few things came to light which shaped the idea of TDi and reason why I started and founded TDi. One of those is that if we are going to make change in the world and make our economy more sustainable and more just, then we have to engage the productive sector. They're a key part of it. Of course, government is a part of that as well. Civil society is an essential part. But without engaging business, then we really haven't got the best chance of making this work. And if you think about it, everybody's in a job. So making those jobs and those businesses purposeful and just is a good endeavor, I think. So the other thing I noticed was that when I looked around at the different consultancies and advisory agencies that were there, advising businesses, they served a singular purpose. They were either engineers to do with sustainability and ESG, or they were marketing agencies to do with sustainability and ESG. When I was thinking about forming TDi Sustainability and I was reviewing the landscape of other agencies and consultancies that serve businesses on this topic, what I observed then, there were organizations which served specific areas such as engineering or auditing or marketing with sustainability, but they didn't serve the business in a holistic way. And the idea of TDi Sustainability is that this is a one-stop shop for building a sustainable business. Yes, of course, we have to do audits, we have to understand our supply chain, but we also have to understand the fundamentals of the business, because at the end of the day, the businesses pursue and achieve their purpose if they're able to create value and generate a profit. And so that has to be central to our consideration.
So would you say that's the key element that sets TDi apart from other businesses operating in the same landscape then? It's that one-stop shop rather than the individual business areas that it serves?
Yeah, I think it's the one-stop shop. It's having that view, it's understanding that what business is about, and then ensuring that sustainability or ESG compliance, as we call it, can be dissolved into that overall approach to business, and overall business fundamentals. The other things which I think set us apart is that we're here for the long haul. So if I go back to when we first started TDi, many of those, I think about 10 of those customers, those clients that we had in the first 2 years, are still clients today, because they know that we're always going to be here, we're going to finish the job, and we're going to continue to think about what they need and how we can create value for them. So that's another thing I think that sets us apart.
And what does TDi itself actually stand for? What's in the name?
Originally, it stood for the Dragonfly Initiative. The dragonfly is really important for me because it's an animal which I've admired, a creature that I've admired for a long time, for its agility. It's one of those creatures, one of those insects that can fly up and down like a helicopter. It's also got incredible vision. Not only has it got its compound eye, which gives it almost 360-degree vision, and many of our products at TDi are called TDi 360 or have 360 attached to them, but also it can see just beneath the surface of the water as well. Yeah, so it gives that kind of perception and that kind of depth and insight, which I think is very important for our business. It's also incredibly successful. It's been around since the dinosaurs, so it makes it very resilient. And not that this is what TDI is about, but in its job.
We're not dinosaurs.
We're not dinosaurs. But also the dragonfly is extremely successful at killing its prey. So it's 98% successful. Not that TDI is about killing its prey, but TDI is about making sure that our clients are successful. And that's really our ethos at TDI, that we're here to serve our clients. We're here to make sure that they're successful. And so we're going to use our 360-degree division, our agility, our resilience, our insight to make that a reality.
So efficiency, agility, insight, they're all key TDI values.
And commitment. So we're 100% committed. You know, we're going to get this right. I'm 100% confident and committed that we're going to find a solution to it. Every problem is thrown at us, and if we trip up every now and again, then we'll pick it up and we'll keep going until we make that
right.
possible. Until we get it right.
And so back to you personally. 10 years ago, when you first founded TDI, you appeared rather glamorously in Italian Vogue in an interview there, and you talked about how you saw yourself as a bit of a business matchmaker, bringing together organisations and businesses with a similar ethos, I suppose. Do you still see yourself in that sort of role today, or do you still see TDI operating in that sort of role?
Not sure whether I want to see myself in Italian Vogue again, or anybody else would like to see that. But in terms of the role that TDI plays, I mean, yes, it's changed a bit. In those days, we were working a lot on the jewellery and luxury supply chain. And it was very important for our jewellery clients and luxury clients to find sources of materials that met their quality needs, but also met their needs for sustainability and ESG. And so the role then was to try and find and nurture those companies that could build those supply chains with the luxury. The market's matured a lot now, and there are more offerings on the market. So in some ways, that kind of matchmaking isn't as needed as it was then. However, where that has extended and expanded in our business is bringing together business leadership groups. So we're very strong believers in that if we're going to bring about systemic change, and systems change is what it is all about, that can't be done alone by individual companies or individual government agencies or even individual NGOs. We have to do that together. So a lot of our work now is building these multi-stakeholder initiatives, these pre-competitive spaces where businesses can come together, understand a specific and stubborn sustainability problem, and we can enable them to put together the innovative solutions that can only happen if they all act as one. So that certainly is something that I see as a role of TDI, and my role in particular.
And how do you think, you've mentioned one area there, which is the development of these multi-stakeholder partnerships, but what other areas do you think you've seen greatest change in since you started TDI? How has TDI as a business evolved and changed?
Well, we've changed. Obviously, if you're a business, you have to change to your customers' needs. And I think we've seen a massive expansion in 2 or 3 areas in corporate sustainability, if we call it that. One is the compliance side of it. And so compliance has grown almost exponentially in that, you know, the amount of compliance instruments out there have gone from a handful when we started to, you know, over 60 or 70 now, which are to deal with the supply chain alone. So that presents a huge challenge for companies from all fronts, going back to the idea of TDI as a rounded and integrated consultancy. We have to look at all aspects of business. So it presents a problem in the actual compliance, meeting those requirements. It's a problem for companies in terms of supplier and counterparty engagement. How do you actually reach out? It's one in terms of capacity, because we can put as many standards and expectations out there in the world as we can, but if people haven't got the capacity or don't know about these, they're never going to meet them in the first place. And it's also one about reputation, which is your department, of course, Sarah, but how do we communicate that these companies are in fact meeting and going beyond. So compliances and regulations, that is one area which has changed, and our job there is to make it as simple as possible for companies to meet those compliance expectations, but also look to the other side and have impact. And that's another big change I've seen as well, is that companies realize that to demonstrate their value for society, their expectations aren't just to meet checklists and rules and regulations, but actually demonstrating they're creating value for communities on the ground. So at TDI, we talk about having suits in the boardroom, which is the compliance side, to having boots on the ground, which is the impact side. And so we are seeing an increase in our business in actually delivering community benefits, solving environmental problems in farms, in mines, in infrastructure, in the countries where many of the materials, products are sourced by our customers in Europe, North America.
So would you say that's another area that really sets TDI apart then, that impact on the ground and the ability to help companies achieve actual meaningful impact on the ground?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. We have always set out to have impact on the ground, and this goes back to the idea that TDI doesn't just do compliance or doesn't just do boardrooms. We actually have to have impact on the ground. And that is important because companies have to understand why they're doing things. Only if they understand why and they can actually see the impact they're having, will they then be able to more intuitively use their internal resources to make their own organizations more efficient in terms of that impact. So we have a growing practice in free, prior, and informed consent, in investments around communities, around natural resource projects, projects in community relations, and other really impactful projects on the ground, which we put under TDI Impact as our department which works on that.
And so that seems to be one area of the business landscape or the sustainability landscape that's changed maybe over the past 10 years then. What other areas do you think you've seen greatest change in over that period in terms of the actual landscape that TDI is operating in?
Well, I guess the first answer to that is that it's just grown hugely. When we first started, we've been lucky enough to work with some of the larger brands in the electronics and the auto and natural resource space. And for those largest brands, it was always a concern, a reputation concern. But with new regulation coming in now, this is now important and necessary for smaller and mid-sized companies as well. So it's no longer the domain for the biggest and the most elite. This is now finding its way down to all companies. That's certainly a thing. It's also expanded in terms of the materials or inputs, the input materials to downstream companies, to manufacturing companies, where back in 2010 it was about conflict minerals, for example, and about certain inputs. Now it's about all products, all materials, all countries, and across all sustainability issues, from human rights to environment to deforestation to biodiversity. So it's just expanded dramatically, and the expectations for what companies should gather around their supply chains has deepened and become more sophisticated. So the way that we've responded to that, again in the effort to make it easier and add value for our companies, is to digitalize a lot of the data that we've been building over the last 10 years and putting that online and automating it so that they can ensure that they're compliant, ensure they're meeting their stakeholders' expectations, but also putting most of their resources what they do best, which is to deliver their products and services to their customers.
Assheton, what are some of your key achievements from the past 10 years?
That's a great question. I mean, overall, I think the biggest achievement is growing TDI sustainability from 2 when I started with my colleague Julia Menese and I, literally serving a few jewelry and luxury clients. And now we're about 35 in TDI sustainability, which I think is an achievement, and it's great. It feels good to provide a purposeful job for 35 people. Along the way as well, we also launched and founded the Impact Facility for Sustainable Mining Communities, which is now grown to about 20 people and operating in several countries in East and Central Africa. I think that's a real kind of standout moment, and there's many standout moments from the Impact Facility as well, when we founded the Fair Cobalt Alliance and attracted those companies such as Tesla and Google and the Fairphone, which is one of our longest standing clients, who are also the kind of co-founders of the Fair Cobalt Alliance, and some of the biggest mining companies in the world, to address a problem on the ground, which is the health and safety of artisanal mining communities in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. I think that's absolutely a standout moment. I'm very proud too of the work we have done with the Colour Gemstone Working Group, which is a collection of top brands who we've been working with for almost the same time as TDi Sustainability has been around, and to help those companies really understand what are the both the positive and negative aspects to do with Colour Gemstone supply chain, and then come together in a very competitive industry. We see those companies coming together to actually take collective action to make it easier for responsible sourcing and supply of coloured gemstones. I think that's a standout moment. And from that, we have a number of other what we call industry leadership groups. Just recently, we formed the Circularity in Primary Pharmaceutical Packaging Alliance, quite a tongue twister, so that's why we abbreviate it to SIPA. And that again is some of the biggest pharmaceutical companies coming together to address climate change and waste in their pharmaceutical packaging. If I have to pick one project that has perhaps catalyzed most change, or the most change, and I think perhaps has led to other things within TDi. It's a project we did with Drive Sustainability and Responsible Mineral Initiative, which is called Material Change. And Material Change, really for the first time for the downstream industries, for the auto and electronics industries, laid out 50 materials in their supply chains and established and compared what are the risks to do those, where they came from, what were the impacts associated with them. But really what it enabled was the auto companies, electronics industries to see on one platform, and it is now a digital platform, but in one place, what they had to contend with in terms of meeting these expectations about having responsible supply chains, and it's very complex. So what we managed to do, I think, was turn something which is very complex into something which is manageable, where you can actually start to take action. And we recently repeated that, or done an extension of that study through Material Change for Renewables, where we looked specifically at the solar and wind industries as well, and the input minerals into that. So I think that has been really kind of quite fundamental, not just for TDi as a business, but also for many in the industry. We're still getting calls today from some of the big European auto companies who ask about the methodology behind Material Change, which is really published in 2018, 2019, so that's 5 years ago. So it's been particularly durable.
And so thinking about material change for renewables, how do you think the green energy transition will continue to shape TDi's work going forwards?
Well, I mean, of course, the green energy transition is going to be extremely important for us, not just in the current work we do on minerals, metals, supply chains, but it's really kind of a spearhead of a movement of corporate sustainability, which is more conscious about how things are made and what implications what effects their actions have on their employees and society more generally. So in some way I see it as the beachhead for corporate sustainability, whether it's looking at climate change, whether it's looking at human rights, whether it's looking at input materials, or whether it's looking at how materials are recycled in the circular economy. So I think it's just going to be kind of fundamental, and we have to move in that direction, so it is inexorable. And so what our job here is to literally stay kind of half a step ahead and make sure that our clients are well equipped and able to respond and meet those challenges that really is going to be fundamental to our economy going forward.
So what do you think some of the emerging themes are that clients need to be aware of going forwards? There's the clean energy transition that we've talked about, which everybody's fully aware of now and is fully working towards, but what are some of the other themes that you think?
Well, I think there's an overriding theme here that, in order to manage things, we've always been taught that we have to break it down into chunks, pick up on one thing, do one thing, and do one thing or 6 things a day. That's not going to work anymore. We have to think in terms of systems, and so systems have multiple parts. So it has to be systemic thinking that we address. And so whether you're a supply chain manager or whether you're a chief executive or whether you are a technical specialist within an organization, you have to understand your part in that system and then forge partnerships and business models and business cases that see a shift to a more sustainable system. So I think that's going to be the biggest shift that we need to embrace in order to move forward. There are many other things, specific topics that are going to come up and people have to better understand. Deforestation, biodiversity conservation, water management, different aspects of human rights. These are all going to become more and more important. But if we can look at the systems approach, I think that's the key to making it manageable.
What do you think are some of the key factors that have led to TDi's success over the past decade?
Well, we're a consultancy, which means our core product is our people. There's no way that you can explain it. We have to have people who are able to think for our clients, understand where our clients are and what they are trying to achieve, to have the vision to see what they can achieve, and then have the pragmatism and the skills to take our clients one step at a time to realize that vision. So for sure, it is the people always, and that's who we must nurture and ensure that they are fulfilled.
And what about standard setting? TDi's been...
Standards, yeah. So we've had a number of firsts. I always think TDi is a little bit of an innovator, and so having these firsts I think is important. So some of the firsts we have are we help to conceptualize, design, write and establish the copper mark, which is a voluntary standard for responsible copper production. And when we thought about that, we thought, no, this should be a multi-metal mark, and this should count for all the base metals. And now, just last year, they launched the zinc mark, the molybdenum mark, and the nickel mark. So there we have a really tremendous organisation which came through putting our heads together with the industry and figuring out something which is going to work for the industry and be credible and make a change. Another first which I'm very proud of is the Solar Stewardship Initiative, which we started with Solar Power Europe and with Solar Energy UK, and this is another tremendous organisation, evidence of the industry getting together to solve a common problem, which in this case was the forced labour in China and other environmental and social governance issues associated with the polysilicon and the other elements which go into solar power units and modules. So that's another one. More recently, we've launched the lead battery 360. So lead batteries are a crucial part of mobility and also kind of backup energy sources in many parts of the world, but they've been rather forgotten about because everyone's got very excited about lithium-ion batteries and EVs. But lead batteries are going to be around for many years. And in fact, they've been grown in their production and consumption, as EVs haven't had such a big take-up as people imagined. So we feel at TDi that it's an obligation that even if a product is in its sunset years, that we still need to make sure that the people affected by its manufacture and the production of its parts are also taken care of, and that they aren't exposed to any of the risks
or forgotten about.
So the LB360 is another great initiative which has been in the making for about the last 4 or 5 years, and that will be launched formally at the end of 2024.
Yeah. And are there any other projects that are in the pipeline that you'd like to tell people about that are up and coming for TDI?
So TDi Digital is an area that we've been focusing on, or we are focusing on now, with quite some intensity, and we've been building over the last 18 months. So over the next quarter, we'll be releasing our integrated platform, which includes both the ability to identify some of the ESG impacts and risks, some of those ESG topics, learn about those topics, incorporate those into your decision making, but also tools for identifying the appropriate regulations and the standards that can demonstrate that you're actually mitigating those. And then bringing those together into integrated tools, which can include the loading in of your suppliers and assessing whether they are associated with such risks and how to mitigate it as well. So that's actually a pretty exciting venture. Again, where we feel that we stand apart from many of our competitors in this field is that we haven't focused just on one aspect of this, but we focus on how do we incorporate this into a systemic approach to corporate sustainability and ESG compliance management. So the idea is that over the next 2 years, this will be the one-stop shop, the one-stop digital shop for managing, identifying and managing your ESG risks and advancing your corporate sustainability ambition.
So you've talked a bit there about your aspirations for TDi Digital. What are your aspirations for TDi sustainability as a whole over the next 10 years?
The next 10 years? Goodness. Well, I think it's tempting to say that we'll grow and we'll grow and we'll grow. But at TDi, I think we've always focused on stature rather than size. So what we really want to be doing is identifying those core areas for work where we can add the most value. So of course that'll mean taking on more clients and growing our team, but I think it's really about deepening our expertise in some of these core areas, and focusing on how we're going to actually transform the economy through collective action, through better kind of tools, again on the digital platform, through more efficient ways to do auditing. We have a TDi audit, so that's our audit practice, and what we know from regulations is that the expectations for doing due diligence on your supply chains, on your partners, on your products is going to grow and grow and grow, but this is only going to incur greater costs, and we as an innovator should be looking for ways that we can make that more efficient and more effective, rather than just trying to grow the number of audits that we do. And then, pushing into and pushing on our TDi impact. At the end of the day, the staff at TDi are here because they want to feel that they are making a difference in people's lives, and so we have to join those dots and show how there is a straight line between our actions and improved conditions for people and their families.
And so do you have a message for the TDi team then, in terms of the celebration of the 10 years that have passed?
Well, I think probably a message I deliver every week at our team meetings is that I'm extremely grateful and surprised sometimes how hardworking everybody is and how loyal they are to this mission. So keep the faith. We'll keep in management. We'll continue to try and find ways that you can express your talents and learn new skills and kind of fulfill your purpose. But we're on the right path here, and I hope at least some of you will stick with us for the next 10 years.
Thank you, Assheton, and thank you for talking to us today. It's been great to talk about TDi's achievements over the past 10 years, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we can all achieve together over the next 10 years.